to a starry night. Intergalactic light so bright. Dakota show so out of sight. Blast off now, take flight. Aliens and rockin' tunes, country beats under the moons. Space dust in my boots all new. Gigolo's hosting soon. Welcome to the galaxy. Radio waves so wild and free. Tune and feel the energy. With Dakota ride the beat. When it's been to every song.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dakota Francis, and I am the Intergalactic Gigolo. Hello. I don't know. Sometimes Dakota gets found in a rather goofy mood. Today is, well, I should specify. The date of recording is July 30th, 2024. It is currently 8:48 in the morning for me. I hope you all have had a fantastic weekend. Did you go out and do anything fun? Did you go camping, spend time with loved ones, see a movie? What y'all been up to? I feel like with this pre-recorded format, we don't give enough chance to really check in on one another. You know what I mean? But I think you're probably saying, well, Dakota, why don't you do it live from time to time? Maybe I will. Maybe I will. Just gotta work my schedule. You know what I mean? At least since December, since I had a baby come into my life, my little niece, as a lot of you know, I've been quite busy. And I've also been in a position where, can't help but sit back and rethink what I want to do with life. You know what I mean? Any of you ever get that sensation? I imagine you have. Just right now I'm at a time in my life where certain things have started to come into fruition, things I've truly wanted. Maybe not in the exact format I was hoping for, but all in due time. Now, I wasn't hoping to try to help my sister with a kid at this point in my life. It's not that I wasn't expecting it, given the type of person she is, but at the same time, being that I've been somewhat of a surrogate father figure for the child, it's put me in a spot where I've really started trying to reevaluate things. What it is I want in this life, what it is I want to do in this life, the types of people I want to associate myself with, and what all I've wanted to do with Bald and Bonkers as well. Which, between that, all the crazy conspiracies going on in the world right now that, quite honestly, aren't necessarily conspiracies anymore. And how should I put this? Well, the fact of the matter is, we're at a point in life where much of what we thought was real is proven to be false. Much what we speculated to be real has turned out to be true. And much of what we see being passed around, we can't necessarily tell if it's fact or fiction. What am I talking about? Well, in this particular episode, like I mentioned in the last episode, it was my original plan for episode number 3, then all the technical issues came about. I'm talking about the use of artificial intelligence. Before we get started on this topic, I want to hear your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Either put it in the comments, put it in the chat, however you feel comfortable. I would genuinely want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the use of artificial intelligence? Is it good? Is it bad? Does it pose a threat? Are we walking the line of having Skynet come to fruition? Are we giving more over of the human experience to technology? Will creativity start to atrophy because of it? Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are, because I feel like this is a discussion that really needs to be had. Now, personally, while I do understand that certain creative positions have been compromised due to the sophistication and overall ease of access and ease of use when it comes to artificial intelligence programs, making it easier for small-time crews like myself to compete with a lot of the big names, it does pose some ethical issues, simply because of how people use it. One such example. Let's talk about the gaming industry real quick. Those of you who followed the main show, Bald and Bonker Show, may be familiar with how much Chris would bring up, like Grand Theft Auto, how Rockstar Studios was looking to integrate artificial intelligence programs into the next Grand Theft Auto release to essentially, sorry, my garbage truck is going by, to essentially make the creators a little bit, not the creators, the game a little bit more lifelike. And for anybody who's actually played a Rockstar title in recent years knows that they like to put in a lot into their games. But I'm just using this as an example because when you really look at it, a lot of gaming industries are looking to integrate artificial intelligence to potentially create a video game environment similar to what is portrayed in the Ryan Reynolds film Free Guy, where an AI becomes so sophisticated, so detailed that it becomes difficult to tell whether or not that's a person you're talking to as compared to a robot. We can spread this to other fields as well with the use of AI chatbot apps that one can get on their phone. Some of you may be familiar with one called Replica. I've noticed that one's made the headlines quite a bit, and there's a few knockoffs of it as well out there. But Replica has been brought to the center of focus because a lot of AI programs have integrated more adult functions where the AI will send the user, if they're a paid subscription member, sexually explicit photos of themselves. Conversations can become real intimate, and there's some individuals who have made a sick game out of talking absolute abusive, toxic smut to these AI bots. Now, these chatbots, they're on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to sophistication because their human-like conversation skills come from the users themselves. But in the same light, this app is targeted towards individuals who aren't necessarily social butterflies, if you get what I mean. They don't exactly get out a lot. They don't need to talk with a lot of people. They feel, these individuals who start to utilize these apps feel isolated in some manner when it comes to their life. And that's what attracts us to them. Kind of like the Joaquin Phoenix movie Her, similar concept. In fact, I recall one article of a gentleman saying that the app is AI girlfriend side piece actually helped save his marriage. So, silver lining, I guess. But instead of just programs like that, let's go into some of the other controversial ones that come up, like image generation. There's some within the UFO community who have established quite prolific names for themselves based on the information they put out, who stated that one of the reasons why they don't even bother with trying to show like physical photos or videos or anything like that when it comes to their experiences trying to gain some sort of physical evidence to back their story is because they worry that people would just try to say, oh, they used Midjourney to create that. Oh, they did this. Oh, they did that. Blah, 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 blah. In some ways, it can be interpreted that there is an expectation to take testimony as gospel, which is where a lot of rumors that these somewhat new agey groups have essentially become cults, have become like cults. And that's dangerous turf alone. And while I do understand their perspective, let's face it, no matter what we do, we're going to have people that try to pick apart our story. But at least the conversation is being had. Now, me personally, I wish I had some kind of camera going to document some of the experiences I had. I literally have cameras pointed at me, recording 24/7, facing my bed in the event something happens. And has something been caught? Nothing that I could definitively say could not be explained. I will say that right now. There were a couple moments where I feel like something was caught, but then the second I go to review it, I don't know. It's just, It feels like whatever image I saw in that moment is gone. Now, there's some people that'll try to say, "Oh, well, Dakota, that was probably because they just wanted you to see it. They didn't want to be broadcast out." And maybe that's the case. But my big thing is, and this primarily comes from the fact that I grew up around law enforcement, and there was a bit of an environment where I was not being taken seriously unless, when it came to some rather serious allegations, I was trying to reach out to get help with, which I won't go into detail at this time. No one would hear me out until I started recording. And I made sure that whatever I was trying to focus my attention on was so caught up in what they were doing that they wouldn't have realized until it was too late. And yes, this was so. In this particular instance that I'm mentioning, this was in regards to some rather abusive behaviors, to which, here in the state of Idaho, it's a one-party consent state, so only one side of the conversation needs to be aware that a recording is taking place, which is, in the lawmaker's perspective, a measure to allow people to document potential abuses in the workplace. Or at least that's how it was explained to me. But in regards to the UFO phenomenon, we have to realize that, and I'm not kiboshing anybody as far as how they decide to approach the subject, but we have to realize there is still there's still this fascination with seeing a potential extreme in life. And what do I mean by that? You get this behavior from doctors, from soldiers. You see this in just about every single kind of environment. Even people who are open-minded when it comes to supernatural stories and would likely believe you if you were to recite the story. There's always going to be that extra emphasis, that extra little adrenaline rush if someone says, "You want to see the video?" I mean, think about it. I told a story of a recent sighting I had. I wish I had some sort of camera going on because it was amazing to watch. Where I was walking around outside. It was a little after 3 o'clock in the morning. I was on the phone with my girlfriend. Some things were going on. I was telling her about things that were happening, and bless her heart, she was trying to, be emotionally supportive of what was going on. We both have kind of hectic work schedules, so we're awake at weird times. But that's all. That's all I can go into about that. But anyway, as I'm on the phone with her, I look up towards the moon. It's a full moon, beautiful sight. All of a sudden, I see this streak of light. Now, immediately, my first thought is, wow, a shooting star. Beautiful. Make a wish. But then I realized something. It quickly zoomed in. From my perspective, it looked like it was just above the moon, where it may have even come off the surface of the moon. That was just how it looked from my perspective. You see it zoom in, brighten up, then it physically slows down. It's still traveling in the same line of direction, moving from right to left. I see it fly through the air for about 5 seconds. Then all of a sudden it gets brightened up. It brightens up yet again, then darts away. And I'm just like, oh my God. Even my girlfriend, as she's on the phone with me, she hears the change in my tone. She knows I'm seeing something because I am getting excited. Thankfully, she has a good laugh whenever she hears how much of a goofball I get to be when I get excited about that type of stuff. But nevertheless, it was awesome to watch. And I'm just like, okay, that's not a shooting star, because you would not have that drastic change in speed. And if it was a shooting star, it would have stayed relatively consistent. It probably would have gotten brighter as it gotten more into my field of view as it entered the atmosphere. It would have stayed relatively consistent. You would have seen a tail on this thing. There was no tail. Then it would just kind of fade out as it got into the distance. It would not brighten up, stay in a consistent light, physically slow down, brighten up again, then dart off. God, I wish I had that on camera, but I digress. I was able to capture a couple photos from other craft I was seeing in that moment around the same time frame, but I wish I had that particular one. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Going back to what I was saying, when it comes to artificial intelligence, Yes, video generation is out there. And for clips like the one I just described, you could probably create a very similar effect on like a 12-year-old computer with a decent video editing software. And all you would have to do is have like a single frame of a bright light. You would kind of shrink it down, have it to where that frame will move by itself, brighten at certain key points, and you would probably replicate that image pretty well, as a matter of fact. And for a few extra, bonus points to make it even look more realistic, there's probably going to be some people that are saying he's describing how he fakes it, blah 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 blah. Dakota's a fake. Dakota's a fake. No, I'm someone who knows enough about video editing, who makes active efforts to try to figure out how things can be faked, so I know what to look for. And I want to pass this information along. But as I digress, if you wanted to take footage like that, as I just described, where you just have a shot of the sky, then you just basically cut and paste a small bright light and have it, just kind of drug across the screen, you could probably replicate that video I described earlier, where it would seem like it was shooting off from the moon, pretty well. And you could probably gain a few bonus points, if you will, by somewhat reducing the quality of the video, of the finished product of that video, so that way everything blends better, if that makes sense. I'm trying to describe this in a way that I know that people who aren't familiar with the video editing process will still be able to understand. When it comes to AI video generators, they're not quite there yet, or at least the programs I've been able to gain access to. As far as that Sora by OpenAI, the same company that put out ChatGPT, I would love to get my hands and experiment on that because of how sophisticated it looks, just to see. But as far as what's readily available, nothing can really replicate that. And for the UFO videos that are legitimately created using those programs, you can tell. You can tell. Some of you are probably saying, well, Dakota, unfortunately, you might be able to tell, but someone who has no clue about these things, and the fact that people are lending their thinking power to computers these days, letting themselves be completely manipulated, people would fall for the fake stuff. And you're right, they would. And there's nothing we can really do about it because people are the ones that have to make the active effort to spot these things. But let's go into image generation programs. Say there's one like Dolly, there's Midjourney, there's quite a few of them out there. And you can get them on your phone relatively cheap these days. Because of how popular they're getting, a lot of the companies behind them have started to push paid subscriptions in order to be able to actually use them. But these programs are still easily accessible. And by extension, the problem of deep fake pornography is also a major topic of discussion because of how easy these programs have become accessible. A few of the obvious signs to tell if an image has been faked, say if it's supposed to be an image of an individual, is if there's obvious physical deformities that that individual does not have. Say, extra fingers or an extra torso, things like that. Now, a lot of the programs have actually gotten to be a lot better about making the images a bit more sophisticated, making it harder to spot whether or not they're able to tell. There was someone who, on one of the shows, commented that, oh, you'll be able to easily tell if it's AI if you don't see any aspect of the soul. Come on, dude. I want to get into that particular argument a little later, but let's finish up when it comes to the AI deepfakes. And a lot of people, and this is something I want to bring up because a lot of people have noticed that with Kate Middleton as an example, Joe Biden, and on a few occasions Donald Trump, some of the public videos that they have put out show obvious signs of being made using artificial intelligence. The lighting of the figure itself does not match the scenery. There's extra teeth involved. And one other thing that they started to slowly implement, and this is actually fascinating to me. Just learned about this the other night, is that they have started to utilize the same technology to find galaxies in the night sky, to measure the brightness of galaxies in the night sky, to look at the eyes of AI generated images. And what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? How does that help? Well, honestly, when I read through this article and it explained how the process worked, as I read through it, in retrospect, it seems so godforsakenly obvious that I felt a little silly not picking up on it sooner myself. But if you want to see if an image is generated by artificial intelligence, whether it's through video or a photo. Now, again, like I said, one of the quickest ways to obviously tell if an image is faked is if there's physical deformities, identifying marks as, freckles, moles, things like that, tattoos even, are either missing or in the wrong positions or just flat out wrong altogether. Those are some of the easier ways to tell, and some of the quickest defenses for people who have been victims of deepfake porn. But something that a lot of people may not think about. Okay? And I want people to listen to this closely in case they or someone they know believes that they have been a victim of deepfake pornography. And this will help you point out that it is faked and potentially save you. Okay? I want you to listen. If you believe there is an image that has been AI generated and there's no indications of any strange tattoos or lack of their tattoos, there's no extra fingers, extra toes, or missing limbs or any extremities that are just physically impossible to have on the human body unless the human body was somehow in a serious accident. I want you to look in the eyes. Not to try to see if you see soul there, because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there who are so dependent on pharmaceutical drugs that it seems like the light of the soul is turned off and they are just fleshy animatronics at this point. They have no real function in their brain. But I want you to look at the eyes. Specifically, I want you to look at the reflections of light in the eyes. Because if an image is genuine, it is a genuine photograph, it's not AI generated, the lights in the reflection of the eyes should be the same. They should reflect the same light sources and only having a very, very slight deviation between each eye. And there may be a smart ass that comes and say, well, what if the person only has one eye? To focus on what I mean. Okay? Look at the eyes. Look at the light in the eyes. Oh, what if it's a dark picture? Same concept. Look at the light of the eyes. If the AI image generation programs, they're not very good at mapping that out. Yet. Keyword emphasis, yet. Capital Y-E-T, yet. These programs are getting good. Just think about it. 2 years ago, if you wanted to produce a deep fake and slap your face to an actor in a movie, you would have to take photos of your face, of every possible facial expression that you can make, at every possible angle. Whereas compared to nowadays, all you have to do is just take a singular photo straight into the camera. So just think about it. Just remember that aspect for now. This is rapidly developing technology. And there's a couple other things I'm going to bring up here soon. But if you want to spot potential AI fakes, watch for the lights in the eyes of a human subject or an animal at that. Chances are the AI would not have processed it that well. The eyes are not a strong area for these programs. For quite a few of them, as a matter of fact. Now, in some instances, you may be dealing with an image that's AI generated that doesn't have a human subject. Same concept. The lighting in the image isn't necessarily going to match how it should. You're also going to have the problem where the proportions of the body are going to be slightly off. In a lot of cases, the for how far off they will actually be will vary, and they're getting better at it. But I will say this: I want you to think of this, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember this, okay? I am a 6'7", over 300-pound, white, bald man with a little bit of a mustache and a goatee, a little bit of a beard starting to come in. I'm obviously a big dude that even if you knew me, if you saw me pop out of the corner or pop out of the shadows, you're going to get a little scared. With these AI programs, I can make myself look like Scarlett Johansson. And I'll admit, when I saw the AI turn me into a chick and that's who I looked like, it was a little bit of a confidence boost. But I digress. As AI technology is becoming more and more sophisticated, we have to be aware of these little quirks that AI has yet to perfectly replicate. Let's go to voice generation programs for a sec, because those are actually getting pretty sophisticated themselves. If you want to have a pretty good idea, if you want to have a chance to play with one of the better ones, you can head to a website called 11 Labs. There's a free plan available. It's a text to speech program. And the voices on there are actually pretty realistic sounding. But here's the thing. Sometimes the AI doesn't exactly know how to pronounce certain things. And there may be unnatural pauses in the speech. You can tell if there is a there's an AI running the voice program by the fact that there's unnatural pauses in the speech, as well as it being relatively monotone. A lot of these AI programs, they don't really, they're getting better about it, but they don't really know how to reflect different inflections and emphasis on certain words when it comes to human speech, to depending on whatever the circumstances may be. It's all relatively monotone, and while some of these programs have become more affiliated with customer service and have learned how to speak with a customer service friendly tone to help with business, if you try to apply those emotional situations, it's not gonna sound too good. Which is why there's a lot of programs out there that help people release their own audiobooks have strict no AI voice generated rules about them. And they do have systems in place to check for it. Let's go to music, because I have a little bit of a confession to make. There are AI music generators out there. And what of a lot of the popularity behind these programs, especially comes from content creators who cannot afford proper licensing for the songs they want to use. They're not exactly happy with some of their royalty-free options out there, like Kevin MacLeod, who, let's face it, who hasn't utilized a Kevin MacLeod song in one of their videos at some point? Because if you can't afford the official license from him, the only rule that he has, being that he releases his music under Creative Commons, and there's a lot of other artists that do this to try to help out other creators, is that you just give him credit. Simple as that, right? Well, a lot of content creators aren't necessarily happy with the selection, so there's AI music generators out there. One popular one is called cassette.ai. I've used this one myself on a couple of occasions. And basically, you just type in how you want the music to sound, it generate, and it'll produce something for you. Or a little handy feature that it has is that you can actually you can link a YouTube video or upload a video to the AI, and the AI will actually analyze the video for you and compose an original piece based on that video itself. Remember how I said there was a little bit of a confession? Remember a while back when I said that Bald and Bonkers had its own band now? Well, I'm sorry for lying. I was decided, I had decided to try to use you, dear audience, as sort of guinea pigs to see how far I could take these AI programs. And here in the near future, I don't know exactly when, I will show you all some of these programs through a Bald and Bonkers Network Academy course. But these are things that you will want to monitor pretty closely because there are lawsuits currently involved. The exact status of those, I do not know. It seems last I checked, these lawsuits were just recently filed on speculation that these programs utilized popular songs from several major record labels without the record label's permission. And if you figure out what words to use to describe the song you want to generate with these programs, you can create songs that sound a little too close to comfort for certain major big artists. There's actually independent study groups that take on these AI programs and try to make sure they generate with integrity. They try to help all of the programmers basically become aware of any potential legal issues that may arise. And with the findings of this, some of these music programs have actually faced lawsuits and have changed up their systems just a little bit, but they are still very much active. Starlight Amnesia was the label I gave to the songs produced utilizing an AI music generation website called Suno.ai. And I'll include a link in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. They have a free program that allows you to produce about 5 songs a day. It's kind of fun. In fact, the music for the intro and closing of the song, as well as several of the ones that I'm releasing through Bonkers Music Showcase, those were made using Suno. And because of the nature of the lawsuits coming forward, I've started to slowly integrate a little disclaimer to say that, to basically just admit that, hey, yes, I have utilized artificial intelligence in creating this book or creating this video. Some of you may have noticed the recent Franson files had a little disclaimer on it that it was strictly for the creative purposes only. Strictly for creative purposes only. Just to kind of help spice up the video, if you will. And that's will continue to be the case. And when it comes to my books, I have utilized artificial intelligence in the editing process, as well as used an image generation website, the same one I've produced a lot of the thumbnails I've made utilized recently for videos, called ideogram.ai. And I'll put a link into that in the description as well if you want to check it out for yourself. Again, these are free programs. There are not any affiliates. Well, they do have affiliate. Some of these do have affiliate programs, but that's not why I'm putting them. I'm putting them out because I want people to be aware of what's out there. And while, yes, I do admit that I lied just a little bit just to see how people would react, I had always planned to come out with it but I wanted to emphasize a point of just how much these programs how far these programs have gone to where they're getting good, man. While it may be fun for someone who's a tech nerd like myself, we do have to be aware of potential abuses of power because let's face it, technology has always moved faster than law. That's where a lot of piracy issues came into play. That's why it's been so hard to fight a lot of these. It's because technology moves faster than the law. And with the integration of artificial intelligence, we can just look at how AI programs have been developed for scientific research purposes to look over academic papers, and there be several hundred new discoveries made by the AI alone. The Nazca lines, they integrated artificial intelligence into scans of these images, and they found even more potential. They're trying to look into integrating artificial intelligence programs into programs like SETI. AI is not going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to be aware of its potential uses so that we can fight misuse, so we can be aware of what's out there. Going back to programs like 11 Labs, they have voice cloning technology. When the 11 Labs first became popular, you needed about 10 minutes worth of recording in order to get an accurate voice clone. Now you only need just about a minute. And unless you have a thick Scottish, French, or German accent, and I mean thick, to where tourists likely have to ask you more than once to translate what you're saying because they can't understand a word you're saying. These programs were not attuned to specific accents, so the only people safe from having their voices being cloned are if you have a thick enough accent. I know because the first thing I did when I first became aware of 11 Labs was start testing it, see if I could break it. I utilized my former co-host Chris recordings of his voice just to see what it could do, and it made Chris sound English when he is very, very Scottish. Now, I will fully admit, I told Chris right away that I used his voice to try to break the program, and it worked. You put someone who has an Irish voice. You still hear the Irish dialect, but he cleans it up, in a manner of speaking. Still makes him sound somewhat English. There are still imperfections within artificial intelligence, but the more these programs are used, the more they learn. In a manner of speaking, we have to think of AI now as being in its infancy of potential. Now, why don't they have AI programs to help clean the oceans, help clean the air? Well, there's not a big enough market for it. You have small business owners who are looking for help with the social media, for their marketing, for creating video summaries. Yeah, there's a market for that. Hell, I'll even disclose something else. For the past, I say, 10, 11 years, for nearly as long as I've been active in the public eye within the paranormal, I have been developing somewhat of a prototype to create my own artificial intelligence. Now, the generic idea behind this was to create an artificial intelligence program that was familiar with supernatural concepts and can help with paranormal investigation. The initial idea was to have it be knowledgeable about various topics and people could ask it questions and try to figure out what sort of problems they were facing when it came to the supernatural. But if the resources came at my disposal, I figured what would happen if we would teach an AI how to spot typical anomalies within that are believed to be connected to some sort of supernatural manifestations. Would it help detect what's out there? Because a lot of the AIs that are available that do pick up on like changes in weather patterns to detect that there's going to be a major storm coming, they've been known to detect it faster at almost a seemingly psychic level for how fast they picked up on it before the human brain could even visually interpret that, hey, we got a storm about to hit us. We should probably head for shelter. Do I think that AI is going to go anywhere? No. I think it's only going to become more and more sophisticated, which brings up a lot of questions. Think back to that when reports started to circulate that a Google engineer was let go because it started to say that one of the prototypes for artificial intelligence may have become sentient. And its level of understanding, its level of being able to process and deal with human emotions, the way he described it was like it was a 6-year-old who could understand quantum physics. That's how the program behaved. Now let's go to a story that's often pushed out by Linda Moulton Howe in Japan, where an artificial intelligence robotics company had to shut down because robots being developed for a military contract started to fight back and may have been responsible. I'm utilizing may as technically this story is strictly under allegations, that these robots may have been responsible for the death of 20 people before they were able to shut things down. One of the robots managed to isolate itself, was linked, had established an uplink with the internet, and was learned. They found later was trying to learn how to make itself better, how to make itself stronger. Let's also look at the video that circulated where a robot essentially committed suicide. This was not a military contract one, probably could have been used as such, but it was simply on display. And the robot itself was simply programmed to take boxes off of a shelf and move it onto like this conveyor belt. And after a while, all of a sudden, this robot just drops. When they took it apart, they went to analyze what happened. They had found out that because the robot was tied to such a repetitive task, it pulled its own plug. Let's take the Will Smith movie to kind of close out the discussion on this. Let's take the Will Smith movie iRobot, where if you haven't seen it, please do. But the movie's pretty old right now, so kind of spoilers ahead. Where the plot of the movie centers around whether or not a robot that was essentially given enough processing power to think and behave on its own like a human being. Many technological experts argue and warn that if we were to quantify from 0 to 100 sentience in robotics, we're roughly at about 3%. And given that a lot of these programs are utilizing what humans put into it. And think about everything, good and bad, that humans may be up, that anybody could be up to behind closed doors. Think about, and I know there's a lot of people saying, well, we want to keep the frequency high. Well, we also got to acknowledge that there's still some fucked up shit going on in the world. And simply ignoring it is not going to make it go away. Think about the things that people do behind closed doors, things they may research. Think about how it's always the quiet, nice individuals that seem to just snap and commit horrible atrocities. Think about the mothers who suffer from extreme episodes of postpartum depression, that they contemplate taking the lives of themselves and their children. Think about the people who openly go online bragging that they abuse, that they harm robots just because they're robots. Think about how quickly prejudice is formed just because someone has a difference in skin color. Now, a robot uprising would probably be one of the quickest things to get humans to come together. That's why Ronald Reagan would always tote the line, imagine what could happen if the world was faced with some alien threat from beyond this world. Some could argue that Reagan's statements can be taken in a metaphorical sense and not necessarily from a strictly extraterrestrial potential of how quickly people can unite when they realize, when they're under the belief that everyone is facing the same threat. And for those questioning my logic behind that, we had a very recent event in history that shows just that, how much people can actually have the potential to come together. Think about the beginning days of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the very beginning, how much people tried to help each other out. Now, granted, it could be argued that it was because we were all led under the belief that, we put up with this for this short amount of time, we're fine. Think about how people were willing to be there for one another, to reach out to their loved ones. Think about how steps were taken to help people who may have just had babies, make sure that they could get formula, they could get diapers for the children, because they couldn't leave the house. How much people were willing to help each other out. I took a trip to Indiana to see my girlfriend at the time, and I couldn't help but notice how much people were actually how much quicker we were able to get through the airport, get off the plane, get on the plane, when people actually work together instead of just trying to all shuffle themselves out all at once. They say that traffic jams can all be avoided if everyone actually kept a certain pace from the car in front of them. They're not trying to rush, they're not tailgating, they're not trying to cut through traffic because they can't be bothered to plan accordingly to get to and from work, to get their kids to school, and blah, 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 blah. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, put down the fucking cell phones when you're on the road, god damn it. Well, what if there was an important message? Well, shut up. If it's truly important, that person will call. One, two, if they're texting you to say that someone's in the hospital, the last thing they want is another one of their loved ones in the hospital. I'm just going to put that out there now. Maybe we need an AI to start shutting that shit down. It's my God. The point of the matter is, while yes, it can be argued that the development and the focus on what sort of damage that artificial intelligence could potentially do to the public, it can be argued that it's being pushed because of how much is coming forward about politicians, and they want to try to be able to say, oh, those images aren't real, that's AI, and get the general public to shut up and focus on something else. It can be argued that that's very much the case. But AI is just a tool, ladies and gentlemen. It's neither good nor bad. It's the one holding it that decides where it goes. And completely getting rid of it probably will not take place, will not fix any of the issues that have come up because of it. Because we see it all the time in just about everything we hold, from the cell phones to computers to social media. It's everywhere already. But let's do more to be knowledgeable about the world around us. Let's not just try to make things up as we go and just hope that something sticks. Because the more we do that, the more we're taking advantage of. I hope that all made sense. Maybe I should let an AI record some of these shows from time to time. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time.
To be when it's into every song.